goes home at the end of the day to Olathe. Mr. Fotovich's kids go home from school at the end of the day to Olathe. He sits down with his family at home whenever they eat at his home in Olathe. What's worse, Mr. Fotovich recognizes as much. And based on his comments after a recent council meeting, he really doesn't seem to care. In my opinion, those comments showed a lot of contempt, for lack of a better word, for the citizens expressing this concern. The ordinance may not be sufficiently clear to cause Mr. Fotovich to be forced off the council. However, it is the duty of the remaining council people and the mayor to stand up and make the voices of the citizens heard. I call on this council and the mayor to pass resolution after resolution, proclamation after proclamation, expressing their condemnation of this action, series of actions, to hold on to power based on technicalities. We know what is right. Mr. Fotovich knows what's right. Simply saying so privately does nothing. The silence is taken by Mr. Fotovich as a wink and a nod approval. If it is wrong, say it is wrong. Make it public, make it a proclamation, and make it repeated. For someone who I can only assume holds aspirations for future office, public condemnations such as those will have an effect.
Thank you, Bruce.
Hello, Council. My name is Rich Melton. I live at 521 East Hawthorne. I'd like to thank you all for allowing me to speak tonight. I'd like to have my fine assistant hand you something. I've got a list here. This is a petition that was started online, not even by myself, by another citizen. You'll notice it started on 4/22, so it was after last council meeting. There's 176 signatures on here of people who would like to see Councilman Fotovich resign. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but let's take into consideration only 447 people voted for Councilman Fotovich when he won his election. And that was, by the way, when he was living in Gardner. So I doubt those 447 people would cast the same vote again. So this is the third time I've been up here with no resolution and no real discussion amongst the council. I guess you had a session tonight. I don't know how that went. But this problem needs to be resolved in a timely fashion because, especially with things like EUB and other things coming up, we invite other people into the city to talk about and tell us what they want, but we don't invite those people to vote. Citizens should be the ones voting on that. People who live here should be voting on that, not people who don't live here. Thank you folks very much, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Rich.
Good evening. I'm Lee Moore, 521 East Dogwood Street. And I just want to say Mr. Fotovich needs to do the right thing. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Good evening. I'm Rhonda Martin, 30125 West 187th Street. I'd like to first thank the gentlemen behind us, the police officers, for their service and their duty, and recognize the value that they have for our community. I would also like to take this time to agree with the gentlemen who have been up here previous to me. I believe that it is in the best interest that Mr. Fotovich resign his position. When I looked at the term resident, the legal definition that continued to come up on internet, the dictionaries, was a person who intends to make the place they reside or the area in which they reside at a permanent place of dwelling. Mr. Fotadovich is not making Gardner a permanent place for himself and his family. He has already admitted to that. When they were crafting the Constitution of the United States and they were deciding on representatives, one of the terms they avoided was resident. They chose to use the word citizen instead. Citizen holds more value and more meaning because a citizen not only dwells in the place that they live, but they represent the place they live. Sir, I don't believe you can do this when you live in Olathe. I think that the majority of us, the petition has shown that we do not believe that you continue to meet the standards and the requirements to continue to serve on this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. Anyone else? With no one coming forward, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a member of the council that would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we pass the consent agenda.
Oh. You okay?
Mr. Mayor.
Sounded like you got a little something in
I
there.
was about to second the motion, but I was jumped to the gun.
Okay.
She's very fast,
Want to make sure you remember.
very, very fast.
Motion, Shute, second, Harrison, that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Consent agenda passes. New business item number 1. Consider holding a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments to request a waiver of distance limitation to allow for the sale of cereal malt beverages within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Festival on the Trails event to be held on June 13th and 14th, 2014. Mary Bush, good evening to you.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you is the notice of public hearing. The Festival of the Trails Association is requesting an area to sell cereal malt beverage during their event to be held on June 13th and 14th. A revision to the Gardner Municipal Code in March of 2007 allows for the consumption on public property for the annual Festival of the Trails event with an off-premise CMB license being required. The location is to be on Shawnee Street, just east of Elm. Only 3-2 beer will be served within the gates of the beer garden, and all CMB will be required to be consumed in that area. Appropriate interior security will be stationed at both entrances. The hours of operation for the beer garden will be from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. Since the location of this proposed beer garden is within 200 feet of a school, church, or library, that is the Gardner Elementary School, the First Presbyterian Church, the Gardner and Johnson County Public Libraries, the Festival of the Trails Association must position and be granted a waiver of distance limitation by the City Council. A public hearing is required before the council can approve a waiver of this distance limitation. This is to hold a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments related to a waiver of distance limitation to allow for the sale of cereal malt beverage within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Festival on the Trails event in 13th.
Okay. I don't believe this would require public comments, considering we would be opening a public hearing.
That's correct.
I agree. Okay. I'd entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Harrison, second, Shute, that we hold a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments relating to a request for a waiver of distance limitation to allow for the sale of cereal malt beverages within 200 feet of a school, church, or library during the Festival on the Trails event, June 13th and 14th, 2014. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The public hearing is open. People wishing to comment during the public hearing portion are welcome to approach the podium, State your name and address for the record.